Hey there and welcome to my next grow along, and today I will be sowing Matthiola Incana, more commonly known as scented StoX. So you might know them as scented StoX, that's okay, you don't need to remember their botanical name. So I tried growing Matthiola for years and I just kind of trialed it and grew a few plants here and a few plants there. And I never really succeeded, I'll be honest. My heart wasn't really in it, it didn't really work, so I just gave up on them. But actually, they are super easy. When you know what you're doing, they are super easy to grow. So now I've mastered it, let me show you how, so that you don't give up again. So if you've grown scented StoX before, you'll know that they mostly come out as a 50-50 between single and double blooms. Now, and that's for most varieties. But today I'm going to be sowing a different variety. It's the StoX variety, which is spelled STOX. It's a very special variety bred especially for the floral industry, for florists essentially. It has really long straight stems, really long kind of elongated blooms. And the best thing about it is that it's not a 50-50. The StoX variety will give you, I'm not going to say 100% doubles because it won't give 100%, but it's almost there. It's as close to double as it's as close to 100% as you can get. So out of a pack of 40, I would maybe get 3 or 4 singles and that's it. The rest of them would actually be doubles. Whereas for the Katz and the Iron series, you would get 50-50 singles and doubles. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do actually sometimes like to grow the singles. I like to use them for my flower crowns because they're much more delicate, you know. They're a little bit more like maybe Hesperus, but with some scent and in different colours. So they'll give you a very different look to the doubles. They are usable, but just usable in a different way. But many florists don't want the singles, and if you're growing them at home, you might not know, you might have never grown them before, you don't really know whether you want the singles or not. So you could grow some Katz or Iron, and you could also grow some StoX and see which ones you like the best. So at this time of year for overwintering, the StoX are also very good for overwintering. So they're far more tolerant of cold and both heat as well, which is why I sow these to be overwintered, and then I'll get some really nice early blooms next year. With the Iron and the Katz variety, I only really sow them in spring, and that's what I advise on my seed packets. So if you want overwintering, the StoX variety are the ones that you need to get. So I sow mine into soil blocks, and the reason I do that is because, I'll be honest with you, I hate pricking out. Just can't stand it. It takes me too long. I grow far too much to waste time every single day for hours and hours pricking out single seedlings. So I absolutely love my soil blocker, and for scented StoX, it's perfect. They germinate so quickly and you can prick them out so easily with a soil blocker that I would definitely recommend doing that. If you can't, then yes, okay, you can broadcast sow them onto a tray like this if you want to, or you can sow them into, you can also sow them into modules. So if you're sowing Katz and Iron, it's a good idea to sow Katz and Iron into modules if you don't have a soil blocker rather than broadcast sowing, just because it makes weeding out the singles much easier if that is something that you want to do. And I will explain how to do that in a second. You don't need to do it with the StoX variety, but I will explain how to do that. So I have here a tray of compost. This is seed compost. It happens to be seed compost, but you can just use a multi-purpose compost. I think it's using a soil blocker doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to have this really complex ratio mix for your seeds. You can literally just use the compost you would use if you were just sowing them in a pot. You don't need to make it super complicated. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm giving this a good mix. So it's really nice and wet. It needs to hold together in the blocks. Now you can add perlite and vermiculite and sand and all these different things, but honestly, I found it really doesn't make much difference. So what we'll do is we will fill this soil blocker with the damp compost. So you can see here, it hasn't quite filled this edge here. So you just need to make sure that it's all completely filled, that all of the little squares have some compost in them. So you then just punch them out into a tray, and this is just like a fruit punnet tray. I use these a lot. I use these big size ones, and I also use these small size ones as well for sowing into, rather than using kind of big expensive trays all the time. So let's get this one filled as well. My soil blocker holds 20 of these little cells, so I know that 2 blocks of it will actually make me my 40 that I need to sow all of my Matthiola Incana in. Okay, and now comes the slightly tricky part, which is getting one seed into each one of these little squares. My squares aren't perfect. I've got a couple ones which didn't quite work out, but that's okay. It's really not the end of the world. And the way that I do this is by using a toothpick. So I literally just pick up a seed, and it's pretty easy once you get in a rhythm to just pop a seed into the center of each one. And when the end of your toothpick is damp, it picks up really nice and easily. So to pick your first one up, you can literally just dab it into the middle of here just to make it nice and damp, and then it will easily pick up a seed, and you can pop each one in there. And I've put 2 in there, so I'm actually just going to move one out if I can. Cannot bear the thought sometimes, and I have an extra one here. Okay, let's put an extra one in there. I just can't bear the thought of having to spend days and days pricking out. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a little bit of vermiculite over the top just to keep those seeds in place. Okay, so that's it. You then pop your label in them, and I will now pop these into a propagator with a lid on. It's quite warm right now, so they don't really need any heat. It's averaging, I'd say, probably about 21 degrees at the moment. It's mid-September. That might not be the case every single year. If it's not, and if it's a particularly cold September, you might need to give them some bottom heat. So they need about 18 to 20 degrees to germinate, and we're getting that easily. So these will germinate literally probably, I mean, they'll definitely germinate within a week. They'll probably germinate within a few days. The soil is damp. If it takes them a bit longer, I might need to just water them again. But when I do, remember, they're only tiny little cells. I'll probably just use my little watering can to do that, and just give them a little bit of extra water if they need it. So you will then, each one of these, you can then prick out. When I prick them out, and I will show you this as we go along, but when I prick them out, I will put them into I will put each one into one of these cells to then grow them on, okay? And I will keep those in my greenhouse until they have 4 to 5 true leaves. And at that stage, you can then plant them out. Now, I will probably leave them in my greenhouse to overwinter. I probably won't put them outside. I'll probably leave them over winter because I have a low tunnel. If you have a greenhouse, you could probably put them, or a polytunnel, you could probably put them in there. I don't, so I will be leaving mine in the greenhouse. If I need to pop them on again, then I can do. They do need lots of space to develop a really good root system. So don't be tempted to put more than one per cell. And they will be really, really small, but it is super important that you do transplant them at that stage into their individual cells. Now, when it does come to planting them out, into the ground, you can actually plant them really, really close. I've actually just revised my advice because all of the information to plant them 10 to 15 centimeters apart. But actually what I found is that they just flop over a lot. If you plant them a little bit closer, if you plant them 7 centimeters apart, then they actually help to hold each other up. And the worst thing with Matthiola Incana is that it flops so quickly, so it needs staking as well. Once you've planted it, make sure that you are prepared with some kind of netting to actually stake it, because those flower heads get so heavy, they do need to be staked. So if you plant them nice and close together, that works really, really well. They help to hold each other up, and then get your netting ready to go. So in terms of their flowering, it's day temperature and the photo period which actually makes them flower. It essentially initiates flower bud formation, and the optimum temperature for this is around 18 to 20 degrees C. So what you're going to do is, over the winter, they will be slightly cooler. They'll probably be growing at maybe 10 to 15 degrees C, and that's okay through the winter. They will overwinter fine. Then when the temperature starts to rise in the spring and it starts getting around the 18 to 20, they will have already elongated. They will already be growing at kind of 10 to 15 degrees C, and they will have started to form those spikes. By the time the temperature hits 18 to 20, you would hope that you would have a long enough spike to have a really nice long stem length. The other factor which does initiate the flowering is how many true leaves they have. So they do need around 10 true leaves to also initiate that flower budding stage too. So once the temperature and the day length in spring reach the requirement, it will then accelerate this flowering. So cooler temperatures will delay it. So if we have a cool spring, you'll get a delay in that flowering. If we have a particularly warm spell, you'll have that accelerated. Now, the best thing you can do is actually a low tunnel. We don't have a polytunnel at the moment, but it's another reason why actually, even if I had a polytunnel, I wouldn't actually grow them in my polytunnel. And I know a lot of people do, and that's fine. I like the low tunnel because if we have a particularly warm spring, it means that I can take the tunnel off and I can cool them down a bit. You can also maybe put some shading up as well. If we have a cool spring, I can leave the tunnel over. So actually this year we had a really, really hot spring. We've had a really, really hot year actually, but I actually took the top off the tunnel. I took the poly sheeting off the tunnel. I would say from probably the moment I planted them out, it was not on very much. Maybe overnight for the first week I had that on there, and then after that I had to take it off because it was just too hot for them. So anything above 21 degrees will actually stress them. They don't like it. You'll get, it will negatively impact flower production. You'll get really poor blooms, and you might get reduced flowering as well. So hot temperatures aren't great for them. Now the StoX variety is a little bit, I'd say, better at coping with that heat, you will find. So you can probably get to maybe 25 degrees C with it. But anything over that, and they just won't bloom that well. So either side of the year is perfect for them. Once they're in the ground, you'd also give them a feed every week with liquid seaweed along with everything else. And at planting time, I always put some manure and some chicken pellets in my soil as well. Now, once they've flowered, the trick is to not cut them too early. You must wait. So once you see those first flowers forming, you actually need to wait. And I do have a separate video for this. I will link to this. You need to wait until at least 5 sets of flowers or 5 rings of flowers have started to appear around that stem. Once you've got that, you can then cut. If you can only see 2 to 3 rows of blooms, it's not time yet. It's too early. You just need to wait. You need to wait until they've actually elongated. So Matthiola are not a cut and come again variety. You cannot pinch them. You shouldn't be pinched. They have one flowering spike. If you pinch out the tops, you won't get any blooms. So allow that flower spike to bloom. Wait until it has around 5 rings of flowers around it. Then you can cut. And then the best thing is you clear the ground and you can put your next crop in. So this is how I grow my StoX variety. If you want to know how to grow the Katz and iron varieties, which are a 50-50 singles and doubles, they are a little bit more complicated, a little bit more specialist, and I'll do a separate video on those because I will show you exactly how to weed out those singles if you do want to do so. So that's it for the Matthiola Incana grow along. Do make sure you watch both the videos so you can decide which StoX you want to grow, and best of all, good luck!